The Manitoba legislature is in session, and hundreds of people showed up outside yesterday to protest Nahanni Fontaine, the Minister of Housing in Manitoba, who celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Literally minutes after this man was shot in the neck in front of his wife and his children, Fontaine went on social media and said Kirk was a racist, xenophobic, transphobe, all the phobes in the world, and said he deserves no pity. Minutes after the man was shot in front of his neck, shot in the neck in front of his kids, she went on social media celebrating it. Think of how disgusting that is. Think of, regardless of political association, regardless of what you think of Charlie Kirk, the lack of humanity of having somebody working in our government who immediately after somebody has been murdered in cold blood, not minutes after, has the lack of humanity to go on social media and immediately celebrate the assassination. Nahanni Fontaine, then Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba, has refused to let her go. He's refused to get rid of Fontaine. She's still in her role. And look at what Kinew had to say yesterday as these protesters stood outside.
This afternoon, that you should not be protesting a Minister of the Crown's right to serve the people of Manitoba. And I would say to the goofballs out front, if you have an issue, you have an issue with me. I am the one who decided to keep this minister.
He has the gall to call these guys Yahoos, who are standing outside protesting somebody who celebrated the murder of a young man. Now, mind you, Kinew's past, Kinew, this virtue signaler like all these far lefties are, he has a couple DUI arrests. He has an assault charge on a taxi driver. By the way, the virtuous Kinew, who's colorblind, far left, so empathetic. According to the police records, he yelled racial slurs at this taxi driver that he assaulted. A woman also accused him of assaulting her brutally in her apartment. This guy, Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba, has a long rap sheet. Check it out. Isn't it ironic how so many of these virtuous far left wingers who are incredibly empathetic and just want to help the people also happen to have long rap sheets? For him to have the gall to get up and criticize keeping on somebody who celebrated somebody's murder in cold blood, I can tell you right now, regardless of political association, I would not want to be sitting beside, I would not want to be working with somebody who was sociopathic enough to celebrate a murder mere minutes after. But I guess we shouldn't be surprised that Kinew is fine with it, given that he's so much of an asshole. He's willing to put other people's lives at risk with DUI, willing to assault taxi drivers, willing to assault women. But it's called a democracy, Wob. These people, we live in a democratic society. I know this may be hard for you to get through your thick, shiny head. Nice head of hair you got there. Might want to lay off the grease a little bit. But in our democracy, if we don't agree with what our elected officials are doing, it's our God-given right to get out and protest it. And that's it. That's exactly what we've seen in Manitoba. But these far left-wing politicians, the inability of them to see anything from anyone else's vantage point than their own is truly shocking. Does Kinew not have the ability to think to himself that the majority of the Canadians find it offensive, regardless of your political leanings, your political beliefs? You may very well think that what Charlie Kirk said, you may not agree with what he talked about. You may not be a Christian. You may think that abortion should be accessible. You may think that men can become women and women can become men. That's not what this is about. What this is about is basic human decency. Not to celebrate immediately after somebody is assassinated. And even that incredibly low bar of not celebrating immediately after somebody is assassinated, the left in Canada cannot hit. It's insane to me that this woman has kept her job, Nahanni Fontaine. I could guarantee you, if the shoe were on the other foot, and this were a prominent conservative politician, after, I'm not going to throw anybody's name out there, but after a prominent liberal commentator had been assassinated, if a right-winger were to have acted as Fontaine had acted, I can tell you with 100% certainty, this would have been a front page story on CBC, CTV, Global, for days, and it would have been talking about what a threat to our democracy it is. And I can tell you with 1,000% certainty, this person would not have kept their job. There is absolutely zero chance that were the shoe on the other foot, would they still be sitting in their role as Minister of Housing. There is zero chance, and there would be a million articles about their lack of humanity, and rightly so. But it just points out how hypocritical our society is becoming, that if you are a far left-wing politician, you are assumed to be empathetic. It's such a joke. It was such an obvious tell that this Fontaine woman, who, by the way, there's also video of her lashing out because there's an interpreter on the stage with her and going, why the hell is she up there? Everything. She's clearly quite a piece of work, and she's also one of these virtue signalers. I've seen her in many speeches talk about how when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Well, does that apply to you as well, Nahani? Because I think we can see pretty clearly exactly who you are. And not shocking at all, but CBC, CTV, Global News, you look it up, this story on Fontaine, no coverage. They don't cover it whatsoever. Of course, the propagandistic news outlets in Canada refuse to cover anything that's critical of left-wing politicians. It's a goddamn embarrassment what's happening in this country. It's an absolute shame what's happening over here. We have a crumbling economy. We have excess 70,000 Canadians dying every year because our healthcare system is broken. We have the most ridiculous immigration policies anywhere in the G7 except maybe the UK. And look what's happening in the UK. The UK is an absolute mess. There's a terrorist attack at a synagogue, and the same day, you see massive pro-Palestinian movements. The lack of shame that we're seeing on the left, this is becoming just a death cult. And that's really what the left is becoming. The amount of extremism that we're seeing from that side of the aisle, if you don't agree with them, you better watch your back. I'm a relatively small channel. I have about 35,000 followers across YouTube and TikTok. And the amount of threats even a small channel like I get, I can only imagine if you're a larger influencer what you get. The left seem to want to present themselves as the loving and kind people. But if you disagree with them, holy moly, watch your back. What we're seeing in Manitoba is just one manifestation of what we're seeing across the country and across the world, with extremely violent leftists wanting to, it has really modern day leftism has become an extremist movement where if you don't agree with them, they're going to come after you, and they're not coming after you with words, they're coming after you with violence. So shame on you, Kinew, for calling people Yahoos, for exercising their democratic right, and shame on you, Nahani Fontaine, for being such a sociopathic, inhumane human being. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member if you'd like to support. I really appreciate it. I have some gear, really appreciate it, really cool stuff. Help get the Fight for Canada message out. Really appreciate everybody's support. If you're watching on TikTok, make sure you're following YouTube, youtube.com/@FightForCanada2025, and stay tuned. Conservative Canadians need to start getting organized soon, and I'm going to do it, and we're going to get an election called sooner rather than later.